In today's video, I'm going to highlight Ludwig Wittgenstein's distinction between sense and nonsense. His celebrated book, Tractatus-Logico-Philosophicus, was a groundbreaking book, and it was basically a metaphysical treatise which used logic as the basis. So, his philosophical system that was based upon logical construction had an objective, and his primary objective was to find out the limit of world, thought, and language. To put it in other words, to distinguish between sense and nonsense, to draw a limit of the expression of thought. That is to say, simply put, what can be said and what cannot be said. What can be said, Wittgenstein calls it sense, and what cannot be said, he called it nonsense. So, let's see. Wittgenstein defined world as a totality of facts, not of things. It's a very revolutionary statement. The world consists of facts, not of things. And there is a one-to-one isomorphic correspondence between elementary proposition and elementary fact. Okay. Elementary means that which is not further divisible. The smallest unit of language is atomic or elementary proposition, and there is a one-to-one isomorphic correspondence relationship between elementary fact and elementary proposition. Yes, and compound proposition is made up of elementary proposition. It's a very logical statement, and compound proposition is the truth function of elementary proposition. Truth function means two elementary propositions, or more than two, or actually more than one proposition, when they are connected by truth functional operators or connectives like and, not, and, or, implication, equivalence, etc. There are 5 truth functional connectives. So this is another topic. This is actually is elaborately discussed in the discipline called propositional logic or bivalued logic. So for now we shall concentrate on Wittgenstein's distinction between sense and nonsense. So basically for him the world is totality of facts, not of objects. Okay, this is a very huge implication in this sentence. We can make a single video on this line to explore the purport of the sentence. Okay, so now he's of the opinion that compound propositions are the truth function of elementary propositions. Okay, so and there is a one-to-one correspondence relationship between elementary proposition and elementary fact. So got it. So world is, the fact is expressed in propositional language. So factual state of affairs or fact is expressed in propositional language in the form of to be the case and not to be the case. Okay, so the propositional language which is expressed in the form of to be the case and not to be the case has sense, because there is a correspondence between elementary proposition and elementary fact, because the fact represents, pictures reality. The proposition pictures the fact. The proposition pictures reality. So now the criteria, and these boil down to the criteria for a proposition to have sense. So for Wittgenstein, what is the criteria for a proposition to have sense is that of picturing. If a proposition is capable of picturing then it is having sense. And if it does not have that ability to picture, then it is devoid of sense or meaning. Sense means simply, it's technically used in semantics and philosophy of language, the term sense, but simply for the time being you understand it as a meaning. Okay, so the criteria we have discussed, that for a proposition to have sense is to picture. Picture means to represent, like the proposition represent reality, represent state of affair. Okay, it may represent truly, rightly or wrongly, okay, but the essence is picturing. And it boils down to the fact that each single word, I mean the smallest meaningful unit of a proposition, that is a word, corresponds or represents object. The whole philosophical system of Wittgenstein's work actually indicating towards realism. He is espousing realism, but through the linguistic term. That is the difference between his predecessors and Wittgenstein. He is establishing realism by means of linguistic term. Okay, so let's proceed. Now, so we have discussed the criteria, two criteria basically for a proposition having sense. One is the ability to picture, okay, either rightly or wrongly, does not matter, the ability to picture. Now the second criteria is the words that constitute the proposition should represent object. It referred to object, it must have referent. So these are the two criteria for a proposition to have sense. Now the the propositions of natural science, physics, chemistry, biology, according to Wittgenstein, have sense because they picture reality, they picture state of affairs, because they are capable of picturing something, right? And nonsense, here is a bit ambiguity, nonsense. Now we already understood what is meant by sense, proposition having a sense. Okay, having said this, now we are going to understand nonsense. But there is a subtle distinction between nonsensical propositions and senseless propositions. But I want to simplify it. That which is devoid of meaning, that which do not picture anything, is nonsense. So the propositions of ethics, aesthetics, religion for Wittgenstein does not have sense or meaning. Therefore, they lies beyond the boundary of sense. That is why they are nonsensical. And so nonsensical is something which should be distinguished from senseless. Senseless and nonsensical, they are devoid, both are devoid of meaning, but there is a difference of purport, connotation between these two terms, senseless and nonsense. And senseless are those propositions which cannot picture anything, but it is some sort of different way we need to understand it differently. Like for example, the propositions of logic, okay, pictorial form, and the logic of the fact. Consider these examples. Propositions of logic. Second one is the pictorial form and logic of fact. So these things do not picture anything, but they are senseless. They can only be shown, they cannot be said. So here comes the very cryptic distinction between saying and showing. What cannot be shown can be said. Or to put it differently, what cannot be formulated in propositional language can be shown. Like the pictorial form, it shows the shows themselves. So these pictorial form, logic of language and logic of fact, they show themselves in the form of contingent and contingent statements, and in the form of propositional language and logic of language. I mean, logic of propositional logic shows them. So what lies beyond the sense is nonsense. What lies beyond the boundary of sensical propositions is termed as nonsense. And what sets the limit of language? It is the logic, contradictories, and the propositional logic sets the limit of language. And so it also sets the limit of world. What can be said is the limit of language, so is the limit of world. And what lies outside or beyond the language is nonsense. So the very deep statement of Wittgenstein is, whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. So this is what is the boundary or the limit of world.